James Franklin had some really good words about Drew Allar. Well, why wouldn't you? Now, I did hear our good friend Ryan Roberts. I don't know if he's on the Drew Allar hype train at all here. But regardless of that, Joe, there's a lot of hype coming into the season for Penn State. A lot of people have them as their number one overall team. And that mainly revolves around because they got in what they feel to be the best quarterback in the country returning. James Franklin at Big Ten Media Days had some really good things to say about his quarterback and Drew Allar. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the main comment that he had is that he said that he's made significant leaps every single year. And the other part was that he pointed out that he felt that he had unfinished business with the team that he wanted to complete, and as well as an individual. And he also, I forgot to include in the quote, he is projecting that Drew Allar is going to take another significant leap. He had this whole quote and discussion of the year-by-year progression of how he went from a 3-star recruit that was interested in going to Penn State that eventually became a 5-star and then got to this point where he was getting on the field and then was playing early on in his career, but still having things to work on. I have less to react to what James Franklin said and more to just my thoughts on Drew Allar. It kind of goes along with what Ryan was talking about in the social clip that you're referencing. He does still need to be better. He does still need to be better, specifically in late important game situations. I felt like there was a lot of excuse making for Drew Allar last year with the performance of his receivers. He had the best tight end in the country last year. He had the best running back tandem in the country last year. He had a top 10 offensive line in college football last year. Offensively, every single game other than the Ohio State game and the Notre Dame game, they were dominating with the amount of yards that they were putting up. Even the game against Oregon, they put up really good yards. But when he had to face off against teams that had premier secondaries, he did not play up to par. He didn't. I am not saying that he can't get there, Blake, but this significant leap that we're hoping for with Drew Allar, it can be there because he's supremely talented. But that leap, we need to be more specific. He's got to be better in those tenser situations.
All right. A couple of things there. Number one, you can have the best tight end in the country and do some really good things. If you're in these critical situations, you still need guys to get separation at wide receiver. You cannot, this is my problem with people who push back on Allar. You can't run in here and tell me, and I'm not saying you know what I mean. I don't want to hear the narrative that guys weren't getting separation for Allar against Notre Dame and Oregon in the red zone in these certain situations and say, he's holding on to the ball too long. No shit, he's holding on to the ball too long. There's one massive thing that gets completely missed with Drew Allar that James Franklin brought up here, and it's the most brilliant thing ever. Joe, he went from a 55% completion or 59% completion percentage quarterback to a 67% completion percentage quarterback. That is a massive leap. Were there more turnovers in there? Yes. Were there more interceptions there? Yes. But there also comes a part where one of those games, he had most of those interceptions. All right. You had a really, really bad game. Okay. I'm with it. Drew Allar, I thought, played clean in some of these other games. Again, Joe, Tyler Warren was arguably, and we talked about him so much, probably my favorite player in the draft. I told you during draft coverage I wanted the Saints to draft Tyler Warren. Didn't happen. But the bottom line remains is I don't think last year that he got everything that he needed. They did run the ball for 200 yards per game as a tandem. They did. But when it mattered most against Notre Dame for you to go to the national championship and you had to throw the ball, everybody's like, oh, Drew Allar couldn't perform. They literally couldn't get separation. It's easy for me to take away Tyler Warren. I'm going to say this, but I don't mean it the wrong way. It's easier to take away a guy who's a little bit slower than big receivers that are on the outside. Now, I say all that to say this. You don't have an excuse now. The reason you don't have an excuse now, you brought in Kyron Hudson, you brought in Devonta Ross, and obviously for me and being on the show, you brought in Pena from Syracuse. Buddy, you got weapons now. You better make that leap because everything and the hype going in around you this season and why people think you're the number one team, I got to be real with you, Joe. I'm coming into the season saying this is the best wide receiver room that Penn State has had in a long time. You adding Trevor Pena is a big deal to me, a massive deal. Joe, what are you going to do? This kid Pena went stupid last year. Ross went stupid last year. I think Kyron Hudson was completely misused at USC after seeing all I saw and him playing at USC. I am not out by any stretch on the Drew Allar stuff. Again, when he played his best opponents and he had good secondaries and his receivers couldn't get separation, you want him to work miracles. That's not how that works. I think of Burrow. I think of Bryce Young. I think of all these quarterbacks that stood out and were big-time draft picks. Well, what did they all have? Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, who's your boy from Detroit? Jameson Williams, Henry. I mean, like all of them had dudes that can get separation too. Name another quarterback that has had this much talent without the amount of weapons on the outside.
Well, it doesn't happen often, but I kind of push back, not completely, but slightly, for the fact that Ole Miss went and added Harrison Wallace, who was a part of this bum receiving group that wasn't very good, and he's projected to start at Ole Miss.
Also added Juice Wells, who didn't do shit either.
Look, I'm just trying to point out that there were bodies for him to turn to, but I agree with the statement that you just added in here, and I think that this is the most important part. The setup is big games needs to be better. The finisher is Penn State went and grabbed 3 premier players, 3 of the top 15 receivers in the transfer portal, maybe even top 15. Let's be a little conservative. You went and added all those playmakers. You now have to fulfill that expectation. You can't be in these games with a 50% completion percentage and not stepping up to the plate when you have all of these different options to work with. Not to mention, you're losing Tyler Warren, but the tight end room is still incredibly talented and incredibly deep that you have this upcoming year. There are a lot of options that they're going to be able to turn to. They have to, and specifically Drew Allar, has to take advantage of what is being presented to him. We've talked about this on multiple segments, and it needs to continue to be reiterated. And when we do the Big Ten preview, it'll probably get brought up again. They live and die. Their national championship hopes live and die based on if Drew Allar improves in that decision-making that we're talking about, that he takes advantage of what we're discussing. If he does not, they will lose in the quarterfinal, semifinal again, and they will be going home, and they will not win a Big Ten championship game, and it'll probably be Oregon who's hoisting that trophy instead.
Hold on. Let me ask, how can we say decision-making when his completion percentage is up 7% with more attempts?
Okay, because as I said, bad games on the schedule, the bad opponents that they had ran up the box score, put up a ton of great stats. But when we watched the Ohio State game, we watched the Notre Dame game, even if we watched the SMU game, he didn't play great. The errant passes, the ball was fluttering and flailing. There were a lot of bad plays that he had in those games. I'll pull up the stats for those games. His completion percentage was not good in those games.
Okay, then how can people run out here and say that the receivers were getting zero separation? You can't have one and think the other's just going to be magically better. You can't. It's an oxymoron. You can't go out.
Way?
Huh?
In what? Okay, so wait 1 second. Notre Dame, his completion percentage was 52%. Mm-hmm. Boise State, his completion percentage was 52%. SMU, his completion percentage was 59%. Oregon, it was 51%. Ohio State, it was 60%. So that was one of his better ones.
The oxymoron for me is you can't come in here and tell me that none of his receivers could get separation. We pull on the film. You got Herbstreit going during the Orange Bowl, literally saying they can't get any separation. These Notre Dame DBs are like glue on these Penn State receivers, and then tell me that he can't complete the ball. No shit, he can't complete the ball.
But not all of that it's more, it's not that binary that it's just receivers aren't open. It's not his fault. It was the nightmare mix of
hold on. Then tell me what you want him to do.
He has two talented running backs. He had a very talented tight end that was getting open completely well. It's also Kotelnicki's fault for not running the ball more in the late game situations if they couldn't tackle Singleton.
Go look at the targets for how many times he targeted Tyler Warren against Notre Dame and all those games too. And then come back in here and tell me, oh, well, Tyler Warren had 11 targets. Joe, they were giving Tyler Warren the football and running the football because the receivers couldn't get open.
He was also making a ton of plays with his legs. Like, he also could have expanded the pocket.
Y'all are crazy on this one.
I don't think so. I think that there's evidence that he didn't play well in those games. I think that there's a lot of evidence.
You can't say the decision making is bad because then where do you want him? You want him to check it down the whole time? Joe, if it's 4th and 7 and he's got to get a first down, guess what he's not going to do?
Quarterbacks have made whole careers out of checking it down, but those situations, you're creating situations that didn't exist.
So, I beg your pardon? They were never in a 3rd and 7 against Notre Dame with the game on the line, and his receivers can't get open. That didn't happen?
I'm not saying that in those situations that he has to check down. I think that there are plenty of other alternatives that could have been brought.
Hold on.
Especially, he's supposed to be one of the most
athletic. Those situations didn't happen. He didn't have a 3rd and 7 where his receivers couldn't get open in the most critical point of the game.
That was when he threw the interception. I mean, I would love to pull up that play, and I'm going to go double check that after we get off this show and double check that everybody was not open.
Hey, I'm out here giving Notre Dame praise, and you're shooting me down on it. You say I'm a Notre Dame hater. Now look at you.